Welcome back to another completely useless video, or if you're new, welcome to 8 of the most useless minutes of your life. This is the most useless of series discussing all-time ODI 11s. If you haven't seen the Australia team, I recommend you check it out to understand the ground rules. Speaking of the Australia team, that video got multiple likes. Yep, likes plural. So clearly there is a demand for these all-time ODI 11s. I think it only makes sense to move to Australia's great rivals, cricket's granddaddy, England. Given England's rich history of cricket, they've been surprisingly underwhelming in ODIs. A few pockets here and there of success, most notably the team from 2016 to 2022, but if you look at the entirety of the past 50 years, England have been good, but not spectacular. That doesn't mean that they haven't had some good players, though. There's a lot of them, and we will discuss them today. Similar to Australia, let's start with the top order batters. Two players who played all the way back in the 1979 World Cup final, Graham Gooch, who aged like fine wine, and David Gower, the textbook example of elegant batting. Then we have Nick Knight, Robin Smith, and a keeper in Alex Stewart. After the turn of the millennium, we see the likes of Marcus Trescothick, Jonathan Trott, and Ian Bell. I'm also going to give a shout out to Alistair Cook here, but I don't think his ODI game was good enough to get him onto this shortlist. And then we get to the modern day greats of Jason Roy, Johnny Bairstow, and Joe Root. When it comes to middle order batters, there aren't as many. Nobody really worth a mention in the 70s and 80s, and then in the 90s we reach Alan Lamb and Neil Fairbrother. Kevin Peterson and Paul Collingwood arrived after 2000, and then we have Owen Morgan, and for my money, England's best ever ODI batter, Jos Buttler. Two all-rounders that you're probably expecting are Andrew Flintoff and Ben Stokes, both fantastic players, but I think both are a little overrated by England fans. I'm also going to throw in Ian Botham. His ODI record looks very poor, and it's not that he was necessarily a bad player in ODIs, he just didn't try. However, in regards to whether he gets into the team, I'm still going to go largely off what he actually achieved in ODI, and not a what-if version of Botham. One more player who I'm going to throw in is Moeen Ali. Not quite the same quality as the rest of these players, but there are no other real options for spin bowling all-rounders. On to more frontline spinners. England haven't produced many. There's John Embury, probably the only off-spinner in the 80s. It just wasn't a spin bowling era. Then also Graham Swan and Adil Rashid. There's a few more options when it comes to seamers, but similar to the rest, a lot are quite recent, with the exception of Bob Willis. Only one other player didn't play in the 2010s, and that was Darren Gough. Next is Stephen Finn, and two of England's greatest red ball bowlers, James Anderson and Stuart Broad. Then I'm also going to throw in two World Cup winners, and one who was at one point in the squad, Chris Woakes, Liam Plunkett, and David Willey. Some of you are probably wondering how I missed out Jofra Archer, who in terms of quality is definitely better than a lot of the lads I've mentioned, but he has only played 31 games and taken 54 wickets. It's a very short career to go off. But I think purely because of his quality, it's worth putting him in the list. In terms of the openers, I think there's one easy pick, and that is Johnny Bairstow. Definitely England's best opener. It makes perfect sense to play his partner Jason Roy too, but I think Knight, Gooch, and Trescothick deserve consideration too. Buttler is 100% making the team, but he's never batted in the top 3 in ODIs, so I wouldn't feel right playing him as an opener. I think Jason Roy's strike rate more than makes up for his relative lack of consistency compared to the other three, but I do think that Trescothick did bat at a good speed too, so for me it comes down to Roy versus Trescothick. I think the absolutely awesome strike rate of Roy means that he is my choice. Number 3 is far easier, right? Joe Root. I don't think anyone else comes close. Numbers 4, 5, 6 become far more interesting. As you can probably guess, given how much I've brought him up, I want Jos Buttler here. But who do we play alongside him? Ben Stokes at 6 also seems like a pretty easy choice. In terms of pure batting, he's at least on par with the rest of the options, and is probably the most suited to bat at 6, style-wise. And given that none of the others really bowl all that much, Stokes feels like a no-brainer. So who do we play at the other spot? Likely 4. Morgan, Peterson, or one of the 90s guys? I think it does come down to Morgan or Peterson, and this is a coin toss. Both are pretty similar in terms of both average and strike rate. I'm going to opt for the left-hander, which gives us a top 6 of Roy, Bairstow, Root, Morgan, Butler, Stokes. Look familiar? This really shows just how good that side was compared to the rest of England's ODI history. At 7, there's only 2 real options, Flintoff or Moeen Ali. Flintoff does everything Botham does, but better, so no reason to include Botham in this conversation. It comes down to whether you want a spinner or a seamer, so we'll sort our bowling out and come back to it. We'll need at least 2 seamers here, and I don't think there's a lot in it. I think that all of our options are reasonably similar in terms of quality. If I have to shorten down the candidate list, I'm going with Willis, Goff, and Anderson. I know Anderson is remembered for his test exploits more so than his white ball ones, but he does have the most ODI wickets, and he was still a good ODI bowler. But I do think that our 2 standouts are Goff and Willis, so they're going in the team. Also, I think it's fair to say that Flintoff was a better ODI bowler than Anderson, so I can't see any reason not to play Flintoff. For our spinner, I don't think Embury is quite on the level as Rashid or Swan, so between Moeen Ali, Adil Rashid and Graham Swan, we need 2. And Adil Rashid has to get in, otherwise we'd have 2 offies. So now the question becomes, do we want the better bowler in Swan, or more batting with Moeen? I usually say I want my second spinner to be the best batter whose bowling is decent. However, that mostly applies if our second spinner is batting in the top 6. Moeen doesn't get into the top 6 here, and I don't think he's a better batter than Flintoff either, so how much batting can he really provide at 8, and is it enough to displace Swan? I do like having someone who can bat at 8, but I think the better bowling is worth more in this case. So our batting is just prime England's top 6. We all remember just how good they were. Flintoff at 7 to provide some more firepower towards the end. The tail, admittedly, is quite a bit longer than England are used to, so it will be interesting to see if they bat with the same intent. Bowling is good too, 3 frontline seamers and 2 frontline spinners, with Stokes as a good 4th seamer, and even Joe Root if you're desperate. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, or if you didn't, hopefully you at least managed to kill a few minutes and think about cricket for a bit. Feel free to leave any thoughts of your own 11s in the comments, and you can subscribe if you never want to miss a useless video. Bye all!